with Skype. I'm still trying to learn the process. So hopefully you guys can forgive me for that one. But super pumped. This is going to be a fun week. Okay, we can talk a lot here. It's going to be a blast. We'll start Tuesday night. Lights. Pretty excited about that. We got Bryan from NFL Draft Geek. Just got monetized on YouTube, by the way. He's got some good things coming. He's actually doing a round one complete mock draft all the way through. So, like I said, all the way through mock draft for Bryan, which super pumped about. He'll go from like I said, pick 1 all the way to pick 32. And like I said, that's super, super exciting. And then on Thursday, we're taking the station to California. Not really, but we'll be on NGB Talk station, and we will actually do 6:30 pregame for the draft, and then do the live watch-along party for all of you to join over on his channel. Should be a blast. I know he's very pumped up about that, and we've been in some communication this week about it. But like I said, this thing has been a go from all the way to the end of the season. We've had this thing mapped out. We've been kind of advertising it. So he made the thumbnail. He's got that out. So definitely want to check that out. That will be Thursday at 6:30 Central Time over on NGB Talk. And then on Friday night, a half hour before the draft starts, we will be here live for a watch party here on Titan Upload, which I'm super pumped about on the network. And we will be discussing, obviously, all the picks that come through. Should be a fun time. We're going to try to get some guests on here to break down some picks. And we might also reach out to other team affiliates. So like the Cardinals guy is pretty cool. I think his name is AZ something. We can get him on the show. Dolphin guy is pretty cool. Raider guy is pretty cool. So we can get a lot of these guys from other teams in here and actually talk about their picks. And then we'll have our own people in the house for this channel. Heavy heart on my heart right now. I just wanted to give Titan Anderson some love right now. And I'm not going to share anything about Titan Anderson right now, but what I would say is I'm definitely thinking of you, man, and hang in there. You're definitely on my mind. So as the show's starting, I'm thinking about Titan Anderson. So hang in there, buddy, and we will be talking soon. So, but anyways, so here we go. Titan Upload Live. We have Luke on the line, I believe. This is like totally different. This is definitely something that I'm not too familiar with learning Skype, how that all works. But I believe we have Luke on the line, and we'll bring him in a minute, and we're going to talk Titans. I got a few questions for him. He's got a cool podcast. He is on, I think it's No Nonsense, Tennessee Titans podcast. Pretty cool thing. He brings in a lot of different guests locally in the Tennessee market, obviously affiliated with the Titans, and just talks about everything Titan-related news. So that's cool. And then also he works with A to Z Sports, and he'll do stuff like with training camp. So I'm quite interested to see his start, how that all unfolded, because I'll be quite honest with you at home, I think a lot of us would love that job, and we want to know how he got it. He does great work, and where he thinks he's going with that job. So definitely excited to bring him on and talk. As far as you guys in the house, thank you so much for being here. We do have the weekly Wall of Fame, which we'll get to shortly. And again, I just take comments that I really enjoy, put them on the screen, and it's fun. It's pretty cool. NGB Talk came up with a different one last show about the Wall of Flame. I'm going to let him keep that, although that name is awesome. I wish I would have thought of it. And I want to give one shout out, and it goes to this guy. All right. So Demario is awesome. So Demario sent me a bunch of stuff this week, which we'll get into Tuesday night for the draft. It gives you an outline of what teams are looking at, what they're looking for, who they're calling. And it's really cool graph that he found and he shared with us with all 32 teams. So I thought, if it's a 32 team thing, we could definitely bring that up on Tuesday Night Lights. So I wanted to give him a quick shout out. Awesome work, man. So with that being said, I did want to put this on there. So this is our guest for today, which I'm super pumped about. Like I said, he's done some amazing work. This podcast thing he's got going on, that's pretty cool as well. You can see that he had Walker. We see her. I know I follow her. I believe I follow her on my Titan Upload account, or maybe I follow her on my main account. But anyways, She's really close to the Titans. But I want to give you some time to talk because I've been rambling on and on. Just tell us just a little bit about what you do and any plugs that you want to plug away. Go for it, man.
Yeah, so I cover the Titans for A to Z Sports Nashville. This will be my third NFL draft with them. So year 3 just kicked off with A to Z. I love working with them. It's a fun group, and we're going to have a lot of exciting stuff coming out week of the draft. So be sure to stay tuned to our Twitter, A to Z at A to Z Sports, our website A to Z Sports Nashville.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Luke_Worsham. But again, we've got a great team. Myself, Buck Rising, Austin Stanley, Zach Bingham on the Titans side of things. And I also co-host a podcast with Matthias Wadner and Will Lomas, two of my good friends. And we do that every single week. And we'll have an episode coming out on Monday where we're going to do a mock draft. And then we will be off until after the draft. But you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all those good places. And you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at No Nonsense Pod.
Nice, dude. So what does your week look like? So draft week, obviously for Titan fans, it's been kind of an interesting one, right? Like 9-7 for the last 4 years. But there's always usually a lot of excitement with J-Rob because you don't know if he's going to trade up, trade back, what he's going to do. But for you, like, what's your weekly agenda look like?
So during the season, it obviously is very different than it is at this time of year. So during the season, it's, going to practices as much as you can during the week. You're in the locker room, you're talking to players, you're trying to get good quotes for stories. But beyond that, you're trying to get a gauge of what's going on. How's everybody feeling? Where's everybody's confidence level at? What might we be looking for this week in the game, both from the Titans and from the opponent? And then obviously in the off season, you don't have that every single day media availability. And so when it comes to content, you sort of have to get creative. Now, with the draft coming up, we're getting into a stretch where there is plenty of that, of media availabilities coming up. But when there's not any, you sort of have to get creative with, okay, there's lots of topics we can talk about. People still care about the Titans, right? It's how can we present it in a way that's meaningful? When you're doing broadcast content, whether it's one of our A to Z shows, which I'm not a part of, or one of our No Nonsense podcasts, it's how can we talk about this, right, and present it that way in an interesting way. And then on the writing side of things, it's how can I write about this that's going to get people to read past the first few words. And so, daily schedule has been for the last few weeks just sort of staying tuned to headlines, getting set for the draft. I like reading up on players at positions that the Titans might be interested in. And then this week is when the grind really starts. Tomorrow on Monday, we get a Zoom call with John Robinson and Mike Vrabel.
Nice.
So looking forward to that. And then we won't get them again until after they make the first pick on Thursday. And just sort of getting ready for the draft every day. I'm sure we'll have several meetings. We've got a huge team at A to Z. It goes beyond the 4 that I just mentioned. We've got a few interns that have done really good work. Jack Gentry and Austin Huff have started hosting a podcast for us. And we just got to get a big team on the same page and tackle this and do it the best we can.
With everything going on, like, this is just insane. Like, I don't, like, do you even know how this is going to unfold and what we should expect for this week as far as the draft being like a virtual draft?
Yeah, I saw an interview that Emily Proud, a friend, did on WKRN News Channel 2 with ESPN's director of broadcasting, and he essentially said that if we, being ESPN, go into this draft expecting to bat 1,000, we're going to end up disappointed, right? Just because no one's done this before. There's no practice for putting on a broadcast of this magnitude, over an online platform. And to answer your question, I don't know what it's going to look like. I've heard that, EA Sports is going to be having virtual Madden-like figures walk up and get the hats.
Wow.
I'm just really interested to see how it all plays out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I made the comment to some family members last year when the draft was in Nashville. since it was in Nashville, I got to cover it in person. And I made the comment to someone. I was like, they were like, "What's it like covering the draft?" I was like, you know what? The draft for me has always been Christmas morning. Forget the presents. I want to know who all these teams are going to get. And it's always been so much fun for me. And I made the comment that last year with it being in Nashville, it's kind of like being at the North Pole.
Wow.
But for me still, the draft is kind of like Christmas morning. And I'm looking forward to it, not just, to see who the Titans are going to get and cover it from that angle, but every year there's a team that a player falls and you're like, wow, that was really good. Yeah. Every year there's a few teams who are like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And it's all fun. And you get to talk with friends, and I love the draft. So it's going to be a lot of fun, even though it's going to not be in person.
Yeah. And I know the J-Rob and the Titans already did a pre-run, did they not? And a lot of teams are kind of doing.
Yeah, I heard that. And I imagine that that's probably a good thing. Just, I don't know that you're necessarily, you go in those mock draft simulators and it's like, who might be there at 29? I doubt that that's what they were doing. Probably more along the lines of, how do we not screw this up from a technological standpoint?
Yeah. Well, thanks again. If you guys are kind of just joining us, we had a little bit of Skype issues as we started the show today. But Luke has been kind enough to join us. And what's awesome about Luke, like I mentioned earlier, is he's excited to be here. He's excited to interact with you guys here on the show. And like I said, I was like, hey, dude, you can get in and out. He's like, no, I could stay, however long you want me to. So he's definitely showing you right now as he's been trying to get in with Skype. And it was obviously I didn't hit a certain button. So still learning that process. But anyways, so let's kind of dive into some of this stuff and then just kind of what you think. Now, we've heard a lot about Brady. And we kind of all knew the Titans were going to probably re-sign Tannehill. And I think that's great. I mean, it is what it is. I think he fit the system. He proved a lot of people wrong. And it was good to see in what him and Henry can do together. But I'm going to ask you this up front because you obviously are closer to the scene than any of us. Do you think, honestly, the Titans got it right, or would you have went a different direction?
I think they absolutely got it right. And I can't remember if I wrote about this before or afterwards, but obviously I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. I'm not among these people saying, oh, he's a system quarterback. I got to spend 2 days around him at training camp last year and watch him work. I got to watch him play in person last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was that the Patriots played here. And, I think he's really good, but he's really good for what the Patriots asked him to do and what Bruce Arians is going to ask him to do. Now, Arthur Smith's offense proved last year to be predicated on running the football, obviously, number one, but a lot of the plays had designed quarterback movement. And that's more than just, an option play. It's bootlegs where the quarterback is running out of the pocket. It's plays where they're constantly moving the pocket and requiring. They had Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota, two great quarterbacks for that approach. And so, you keep that going with Tannehill, obviously, this year, and it works so well with Henry because of the misdirection element, and you're creating space. That's not who Tom Brady is, right? Yeah. Tom Brady is an unathletic 41-year-old quarterback, a good one, a really good one, but that's not what he is. And at this point in his career, you have to, if you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, you have to structure your team and your scheme around him. And I don't think that the Titans are prepared to do that necessarily, but it's a pain. And they're going to get good production out of Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I don't understand these people saying that, they overpaid for Ryan Tannehill or they should have, I don't know, some people, I've seen some really dumb things said about what the Titans should have done. But I definitely think they got it right, going Tannehill over Brady, because he's just a better fit for what they want to do.
Yeah. And then you were obviously closer to the scene in training camp and stuff. I mean, would you have ever predicted this is the way it would have unfolded for Mariota and Tannehill, to be honest with you?
It's funny you ask me that. If you ask Will and Matthias, who I do my podcast with, they know that I was kind of off the Mariota train for a while. He had the rough, I think it was 2017 season. That would have been the last season they were in the old uniforms. That's how I kind of, by the way, keep in mind, like, which season is which is the
nice.
Uniform switch. So 2017, Mariota had a rough year. Vrabel comes in, Matt LaFleur comes in, and he's still not great. And so at that point, I'm thinking, like, look, we've seen all we need to see from this guy. Sure, give him another chance. I don't know that it's going to last long. And, Tannehill looks sharp in practice. And everyone always says, so-and-so had a good practice.
Yeah.
Who cares that a wide receiver against no defense caught a bunch of passes? But it went beyond just had a good practice. It was like, the ball just comes out of Tannehill's hand better. I mean, the Mariota that you saw on the field that was throwing those mind-bending interceptions and missing Delaney Walker 5 yards away and that was the Mariota you got in practice. And so, it's not necessarily even a behind-the-scenes look because fans were at a lot of those practices, but just being there every day, it's not that I was sitting there thinking it's only a matter of time before Tannehill comes in, but the way that the 2019 season went for Mariota just did not surprise me at all. And that's not to toot my own horn and say, oh, I knew it before anyone else did. That's not it at all. It's just, for me, for whatever reason, I saw the signs. And when that happened, it was just sort of like, well, I mean, it wasn't that surprising.
Yeah, and how much do you think it is because the reports have come out, or at least there's talk out there that he's still hurt? The nerve is still an issue. Do you think that has anything?
That was interesting. I guess you're talking about what Mayock said last week, the Raiders GM, about we need to get him healthy.
Yeah,
and that was interesting. And I know there was like an internet rumor floating around about they're going to put him on injured reserve, which obviously never happened.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was healthy or not. I can tell you this: he was not mentally healthy, not on the field anyway. Because a lot of his problems came down to seeing ghosts in the pocket. I mean, I remember one play in particular in that Denver meltdown where they sent 2 rushers. I guess it would have been Chubb and Von Miller, and Lewan and Conklin had them handled. And so he's got a clean pocket. And out of nowhere, he just sort of goes into freak-out mode and sprinted right into Von Miller and nearly got sacked. And that was sort of the moment where, for me, I was like, it's over. There's no coming back from where he is mentally right now.
I was we're season ticket holders. We live in Illinois. It's like a 7-hour drive. And we got him from 2015. We got lower level, behind the end zone, super cheap. I mean, this was right before they drafted Mariota. I think we might have paid $250 per PSL. So I'm like, we were thinking about moving down there. We're trying to get a job down there and stuff, but it never did unfold. But, we still keep up with them, obviously. But I remember the Raven game. I took my wife to the game, and I was so excited. It was kind of like we were up and down at that point, and we were hoping they were going to get back. And, oh, my gosh, I think he got, sacked maybe 11 times, 10 times that game. But watching him from behind the end zone, it was like –
I preface this by saying I am very blessed to be able to get paid to watch football games. Yeah. That is the one time in my life I almost fell asleep in the press box during that game.
It was tough.
Brutal. Yep. Brutal.
So that 7-hour ride was pretty bad. All right. What I think a lot of people want to know now, you knew it was coming, is Clowney. We've heard a lot. We were in, we were out. I remember going live on this show, and I was listening to Buck Rising, and Buck Rising, a lot of reports, there were a lot of rumors out there. There were a lot of people saying they knew a lot. And us Titan fans, I think, know for the most part that J-Rob they keep their information pretty tight, almost like the Patriots. But, there were some people believing some stuff, and that's fine. I mean, we sometimes we get sucked into it, or we want to believe it. But I remember we were very, very high. We really thought it was going to happen, or at least we were had a good chance. And Buck Rising reported like an hour before we went live that the Titans are still in it, but it doesn't look very good. And since that day, I mean, nothing's really broke. Have you heard any more updates on that, or just going to happen after the draft?
I mean, the last update I heard was what Kuharski reported a week or so ago about how they're definitely all in on him. And, this is, not inside information or anything. It's just my gut says that. So Mike Herndon, who's a very bright guy, writes for Music City Miracles. He pointed out, I think on Twitter, that if you sign a free agent after the draft, it does not count against compensatory picks.
Okay.
So if you don't know how compensatory picks work, is if you lose a whole lot of guys in free agency, the money that they get paid by other teams adds up. And eventually, once you hit a certain threshold with that money, you get a compensatory pick. However, if you sign a player for, let's say $10 million, then that $10 million gets subtracted from your compensatory pick pool.
Ooh, okay.
And so the way this is going to work is if you sign a player after the draft, that no longer counts against the pool. And the Titans, based on what Conklin got, are in a position right now to get a third-round draft pick in 2021 as a compensatory pick. So what I think is happening, and it could be Logan Ryan for all we know, but whatever their next move is in free agency, it's probably going to come after that deadline so that they can get a third-round pick for Jack Conklin and then still get whoever it was that they wanted in free agency.
Do you think it has anything possibly to do with Derrick Henry? And how surprised were you that Derrick Henry actually signed the franchise tag already?
I'll answer that second question first, just because it's easier.
Sure.
Not surprised at all, because look what happened to Melvin Gordon last year. Look what happened to Le'Veon Bell 2 years ago. Le'Veon Bell is on a terrible team with a terrible coach, and his skills aren't being utilized nearly as effectively as Pittsburgh did. And now Melvin Gordon is going into a crowded backfield in Denver for hardly any money at all, when perhaps if he had just signed his franchise tag, he would have had a much better season with the Chargers and gotten an extension from them. And so I think those were cautionary tales. And it's just, look, sure, it's less money. Deal with it for now. The Titans are a great team for Henry to play for because they run the ball so much.
Yeah.
And it was probably the right choice, and I don't think it was surprising based on what the precedent was. Remind me what the first question you asked was, too.
Oh, yeah. I probably don't even remember right now.
Well, we're talking about Clowney.
Oh, the money being for Derrick Henry, possibly. You know, a lot of us see this money as being for Clowney or for Logan Ryan, maybe. How much do you think maybe it's just for re-signing Derrick Henry eventually when it's time?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I think when John Robinson did a conference call a week or so ago, someone asked about, what are you going to do with that money that you got in the Jarrell Casey trade? And he said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a free agent signing. It just gives us flexibility to do things with those people we have in house. And then later he mentioned that they are looking to re-sign Derrick Henry long term. And so, yeah, I certainly think that the money could be used on that. But it's also we're talking about after seeing what Christian McCaffrey got, has Henry priced himself out of what the Titans are comfortable with paying? I don't know the answer to that question, and I really don't even have an opinion on it at this juncture and this early. But it's certainly something to look out for. Yeah,
for sure. So, yeah, thanks for answering those. And then as far as Clowney, I guess, it doesn't seem like anybody's really – there might be a little nibbles, but there's really nobody biting. And I thought maybe go back to Seattle. They know who he is. I know Vrabel does as well, but I thought he played with Seattle last year. They know what he can and cannot do, how much he's worth. And it just seems like they threw a one-year offer at him. From your gut feeling, though, do you think this is something that we need? Or is this just, it is what it is? We get him, great. If we don't, it's not that big of a deal. There's, we can draft a guy, or we still have 6 edge rushers anyways.
It's a good question because they are so deep at that position. Obviously, Harold Landry is your top guy. You bring in Vic Beasley in free agency. And then beyond that, you've got Kamale Correa, who they just gave $3.5 million to come in and be a good depth role player again, which he was last year. You've got the second-year player Derek Roberson, who shined toward the end of the season as a rookie. Reggie Gilbert, who they traded for. DeAndre Walker, who they drafted in the 5th round last year but didn't play as a rookie because he was hurt. The list goes on. And so at a certain point, it's like, I had someone tweeting at me yesterday, and because I've been writing a series of articles on pros and cons of taking various positions in the first round. And he made the comment, he said, I think they should take a pass rusher because you can never have too many pass rushers.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
And yeah, that works in principle, but there's only 2 edges on a play.
Yep.
right? There's only the left tackle edge and the right tackle edge. And if you've got 7 guys, what's the purpose? I mean, unless 5 get injured, those last 2 aren't going to do anything. And so at a certain point, it's like, sure, I do think Clowney would make a ton of sense for them because I think he would play a lot. I think Vic Beasley and him could do some interesting things on third down with Harold Landry. Yeah. But if they make another move at edge, that needs to be the move. I don't think that drafting one early anyway makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and you do see that on a lot of mock drafts. A cornerback, we've been talking on this show for a long time. Like, Logan Ryan doesn't sign. We don't have a 3 or a 4 corner. No offense to the guys on the back end of the guys that are always trying to make the roster, the 53. I'm not comfortable with that, but there is one name, Hooker, that I think maybe can play a role in this somewhere, but I would feel a lot more comfortable maybe with a speed guy, obviously, to fill those corner spots because, against the Chiefs, if you're not going to have the great pass rush, then you're going to need some people to step up in that back end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the thing to remember about Hooker is that he is a safety who has played some at corner. That's a lot different than, a corner who's played some at safety. And so if you're counting on Amani Hooker to be your primary nickel cornerback, you're really betting on a lot there. He's someone that you want to be able to use as a role player at cornerback and as a depth piece, a rotational piece at safety. He can be a starter at safety. For the Titans' sake, they happen to have 2 really good starters already in Kevin Byard and Kenny Vaccaro. But I would not be comfortable with with taking a safety who has played some nickel and saying, okay, you're our starting nickel cornerback. I think it's just a lot to ask. And over the last 2 weeks, I have become more and more convinced that if there's a cornerback there at 29 that the Titans like, that has to be the move.
It's got to be.
Because it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. I thought maybe offensive tackle, but then when you see how much they gave Kelly, for that right tackle spot, I mean, they're rolling with Kelly. Would you agree with that? I mean, they're not going to bring in a backup.
I would tend to think that that's what they're going to do. Because you don't give someone a 3-year contract to compete for a starting job or to draft someone to replace them. You give someone a 3-year contract because you want to use them, right, for the next 3 years. And look, I think I made the comment in an article this week or last week that, or no, I mentioned this on the podcast, that the Titans last year showed that they are not good enough in their current state to go to Arrowhead Stadium and beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
Good point.
They were close, right? They had the lead early. There were some plays that were ticky-tacky. I think that Patrick Mahomes long touchdown run, that was close to being a sack. It just wasn't quite there. And so the takeaway from that is the Titans just need to get a little bit better going into next season, and they may have a chance to take the next step further, maybe get to the Super Bowl. And just answer this question for me. Does drafting an offensive tackle in the first round make the Titans a better football team? Because I don't think it does.
No, and I think what I'm afraid of is they fall. That you fall in love with a player, and they're there. It's hard. I mean, so quarterback, and let's just say they fall in love with one of these guys. Now I haven't heard any reports that maybe that's where it looks like they're looking more of the Colorado guy or the Florida International guy. But when you look at quarterback, let's say Love, for example. I'm not going to say he's there or not there, but that's what I'm afraid of. You draft him just almost like with Simmons. At least with Simmons, you knew he might come back, although I'm actually quite surprised. I thought they would have just left him, but he made such a quick recovery, and it did help us down, in the back end. But you're right. You take a tackle, you take a quarterback, someone that's not just, or even – I think you could do some things with a running back, like if Swift fell. I think you can use him and Henry as weapons, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. You draft somebody that's not going to be able to help you this year. Did you really get better with a lot of these guys like Tajay Sharp? Like you mentioned, like practice heroes. I think of Tajay Sharp as being the ultimate practice hero in the first couple weeks of camp. I went to that scrimmage last year. He was phenomenal. I mean, he had a
he played great in that game.
Great beginning camp. And he goes to Minnesota. He thinks he's going to get a 2 or 3 spot. And now we know Minnesota's like trying to trade drastically for a receiver. But it's like he signed for, I think, like $1 million. You don't have a guy. I know they're really high on Cam Batson. I think we've seen the writing on the wall with Cam Batson. And then, Raymond had a pretty good year. And I'm excited about him as well. But, Corey Davis, he's someone that's really, he's my favorite Titan by far. But, Corey has a lot of work to do. And then, you got a lot. Your tight end seems to be okay. Jonnu Smith, is he going to step up, be that guy this year full time, right? He shows up in big games and then he doesn't show up. And how much is that just getting him involved? But like I said, solid point. We got to have somebody ready to roll in these first couple rounds. And then real quick, I know we have a whole section for the draft, kind of getting into that a little bit and stepping away from Clowney, but trading out. I mean, that is what a lot of fans kind of think's going to happen. J-Rob definitely can surprise you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I didn't see Casey getting traded. But, I mean, is that something that you think quite possibly is going to take place with the Titans trading out of there? And I know it's hard to answer that, but.
So here's the tricky part about trading out. The past few years, the Titans have picked sort of middle of the road first round. I think last year was 19. Maybe the year before that, it was 22 range. They actually traded up that year, so I can't remember where they originally were. But the talk about trading down this year is far different because of how low they pick. And I've seen someone tweeted me a week or so ago and was like, what if they traded down with such and such team to 46 and then got, and my thing with that is at a certain point you got to get a good football player out of this draft. I mean, look at the Cleveland Browns, for goodness sakes. They had 5 million picks 2 years ago and they still stink. And so, right, you just got to get good football players. And so I would not, if I were them, trade any lower than 40. That has to be the cutoff for, if you're the Titans, we've got to make our first pick at least here to get a good football player in that's going to help you maybe this year or next year beat the Chiefs. Because, once you start ticking down the draft, it's obviously less talented players, and the further you go, the more of a crapshoot it becomes. And, they've got to pick in every round other than 4. There are needs in terms of positions that need to be added to, but there's nothing that you say other than corner. If they don't add there, it's going to be a problem. And so, honestly, I think it just makes a lot of sense to stick at 29 and pick a good football player and not worry about, are we going to get someone later? Just take the guy you want then and then start worrying about pick 61.
Yeah, and you get the 5th-year option. I mean, that's a big ploy. I mean, towards the end of the first round, it's not going to cost you as much as 15.8 like Corey Davis, right? So it does give you a little freedom if you did take a corner there and he did pan out. Well, heck, you get him for an extra year. And I think that, though, is scary, Luke, because I think the Titans are in a prime spot, 29, 30, 31, 32, where you do see some of these teams that will need a quarterback that will try to trade into the first round just to get that 5th-year option or possibly get their guy. But, you're right.
Ravens did it masterfully 2 years ago with Lamar Jackson. They're going to get him for great value in a few years on that 5th-year option. But then you see teams like the Broncos with Paxton Lynch where it doesn't quite work out
it doesn't work out.
It'll be interesting to see. And I think you brought up Jordan Love's name. If he's there at 29 and you got a quarterback-needy team sitting, maybe a top 5 team like, well, let's say the Dolphins don't go quarterback in round 1 or the Chargers don't go quarterback in round 1, and they're sitting there, 5 or 6 picks down the line. That might be a deal you consider to trade down to, 36, 37.
Yeah. Well, Luke's bringing it. I mean, I'm so glad he came on the show. He's opened my eyes to some things I didn't really think about. It's a good way to explain, why maybe we haven't signed Clowney, some inside information possibly on just, I shouldn't say inside information, but information that I didn't really think about with Hooker, about him playing in that slot corner position, maybe to fill a Logan Ryan. But definitely check out his podcast. There it is one more time. There is his tweet or his Twitter. But like I said, he's with us. So that's awesome. So what I have planned with you, because, we are an election year and you see these all the time on television.
You're not
So
going
I
to make
have
me talk politics, are you?
we're not going to talk politics. It's all Titans related,
Okay.
but we're going to call it a town hall, and we're going to allow these
Okay.
people in the house to ask questions. And I will
Okay.
remember last time we had Calvin Smith on, and we didn't have him on live, but
Love
we,
Calvin. Calvin's on our podcast tomorrow.
yeah, give him a shout out for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I reached out to him in the summer, and he was the first one to actually come on, and it was an exciting time, and I'm thankful he was here. But like Calvin, just him, we took one question from the audience, and we didn't really have a lot of questions from the audience at that time. So then when I had him on the show, I asked him, and James was the one. I'm not sure if James is in the house, but his question was way better than any of my questions. So I'm really excited about these guys. And I'll tell you up front, these guys in
Okay.
this room, okay? I think we're at 73 right now. We got 32 likes. So if you haven't liked yet, we always go for 50 likes in here. We're going to change the name of the show at some point. But these guys bring it every week, and they ask the greatest questions. They have the most passion. So I want to applaud these guys for here, and I'm sure you're going to get some really doozy. So this is for you. You do
Okay.
not need a super chat. You do not need a super chat to ask a question. We're just going to go through the list. We're going to pick a few, and Luke's going to answer them. And Luke, honestly, if there's
Okay.
ones that I throw up there, you're like, I really don't have a solid, that's totally fine too. You can
All
plead
right.
the fifth and we'll move on.
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. Questions, and let's go. We're at 37 likes, by the way. Here we go. All right, we're waiting. Here we go. Sin City Titan says, which cornerback do you think we would end up drafting in that spot? Which one makes the most sense, Luke, for the Titans? Who would be the one that you would want in the first round, no matter where they are? Obviously, if they're around, right? If there's a guy around maybe 22, then maybe they slide. But I'm not asking like the top guy, but, realistically at 29.
The two names that I have seen sort of float around in the mock draft world and people that I trust and rely on myself for information. Number one is Jeff Gladney from TCU. He's a smaller, feisty cornerback, probably more in the Adoree Jackson mold of play style, although he's not obviously nearly as fast as Adoree Jackson is. That's one. And then Christian Fulton from LSU is another name I've seen thrown around. And I think you do well with either of those two players. Justin Melo, who's a draft analyst that I trust a lot. We had him on the podcast this past week, and he really sung Gladney's praises, had him as his second cornerback in this draft class. Mike Herndon, I mentioned his name earlier. He threw out Christian Fulton's name the other day for our A to Z Sports Media mock draft. And look, I think it could be either one of those guys. If either one of them are there and the Titans want them. Now, I will say this. I think the Titans could use some length at cornerback. They've got a lot of sort of smaller, quick movers. They don't have any long guys that can cover some of these big receivers.
Good point.
And so maybe that could be the tiebreaker between, if they're deciding between one player or the other.
Yeah. Good answer, man. Any more specific questions? Here we go. Ooh, here's a good one. So Jonathan asked, do you think J-Rob makes another blockbuster trade if we do not land Clowney? Maybe like a Corey Davis for something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think he's going to go out and say trade for Chris Jones or Yannick Ngakoue, because they're cap strapped now, paying a quarterback, paying a running back, paying Taylor Lewan, and so I just don't think that makes a ton of sense. But Corey Davis is a name you throw out. I said a few months ago that I think they should trade Corey Davis because they don't use him. Look,
No.
I have never been the biggest Corey Davis fan. You can go back and listen to my podcast from 2 years ago, and you'll hear me saying that. But at the same time, he could be the greatest player in the world. For all we know, they don't use him.
They don't use him.
My opinion is that they don't use him because he's not very good. That's just my opinion. But if you're not going to use him, why have him on the team when I think he probably has enough value to get maybe a 5th, 6th round pick? And, at that point, it's weighing, is Corey Davis more valuable? Is that pick more valuable? There's not going to be any blockbuster trade. If there is a trade, it's going to be more in the line of a day 2, day 3 kind of a deal, I think.
How shocked were you that they got a 7th just for Casey?
It is interesting because I think these days the trades have been so weird.
Yeah.
You see some guys get 2 1s and a 2 and a 3, and you're like, that guy's not even that good. And then Jarrell Casey, who has declined to a pretty significant degree, but he's still Jarrell Casey, still 3-time Pro Bowler, 30 years old. Only get a 7th round draft pick. That's nothing. I think I wrote, I was doing a post a few weeks ago, and I said that's the NFL's equivalent of a Chick-fil-A gift card, right?
Wow.
And it is kind of, I don't think it was stunning because players just do kind of go for nothing these days. But, looking back, it is kind of like, wow, 7th round pick, that's it.
Yeah. I know the money, but man, 7th. I don't put a whole lot in a Pro Football Focus, but made some good points too. Yes, he is declining, but he was still a pretty effective guy. And having him and Simmons for a year, that's one thing I just hope we know. You're putting a lot on Simmons. I mean, he's coming in with the ACL, and he rushed back. He was healthy. He was good. I mean, he finished the year fine. But, man, I mean, if you're going to bank playing him big plays, I just get a little worried about,
And I think some fans with Simmons, I think your perspective is right. Some people after the big Chargers game when he debuted were like, this dude is J.J. Watt 2.0.
Yeah, insane. Yep.
And then he slowed down, of course, as you would expect. You're right. They are asking a lot of him. It's what you have to do. They took a guy at 19 that they told us, this guy's a top 5 pick. He's just hurt. And if you really believe that, you can't just take the Ferrari to the mall parking lot and drive around in circles. You got to, go ride on the road with it.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with that situation. But like I said, you have a hole right now. I know Daquan Jones, he's the one guy that I do respect because he doesn't put up the flashy stats. But from everybody you talk to coach-wise, I mean, when they're press conferences and stuff, seems like Daquan Jones holds the fort down and opens a lot up for your linebackers. So, real quick, because this is me just having you on the show, and I want to ask you this. Going into that playoff game with the Chiefs, how hurt really was Evans? And did you guys really know? Because I think a lot of us fans were really shocked Evans was even on the report. And then when you seen him play against the Chiefs, and we mentioned this earlier, I wanted to ask you this earlier, but it's a town hall, so I figure I can ask you now. When Mahomes went for that run, a lot of it was because Evans missed that tackle, but he looked just awkward. Did you know any more about that injury going in, or was that kind of just what it was?
To be completely honest, I don't even have a memory of that. Was Rashawn hurt in the week leading up to that?
He was not until the Raven game happened, and then he was on the injury report with like a ankle or something. So everybody thought he was going to play.
I don't even have a memory of that, to be completely honest. I wish I could give you a better answer. You stumped me with that.
Yeah, when you watch that game, he was definitely wasn't the guy making these goal line plays. He really wasn't.
It was an out-of-character moment, that Mahomes run, certainly.
Just wasn't sure if it was injury-related or just, you know what I mean, just the game.
I honestly cannot remember.
Gotcha. All right, any more questions for Luke before we let him go here? We'll take a couple more. You don't have to answer this one, but Jamal Adams, what do you think? Byard or Adams? Who do you think is better?
I think Kevin Byard is better. They're both really good football players, but I think Byard is better for 2 reasons. One, he's very versatile. You can play him at center field. You can play him in cover 2. You can play him near the line of scrimmage in cover 3. But also, I think some football players, it's just there's this like superstar quality about them. I mean, it's the reason why someone like Jerry Rice who runs the same 40-yard dash as a bunch of other people and does the same training as a bunch of other people. Why is he the undisputed very best and someone else stunk, right? Some people just have that superstar quality. And I think that Kevin Byard, maybe he's one of the Titans players, maybe the only one, but he has it. And the thing about him is because that he has this innate ability to create turnovers, and there's nothing more valuable to a defense than turnovers.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, with Byard, he doesn't get any national love, and I feel awful. We were talking about this earlier in the week. I went on Fantasy Football Counselor this week and talked to him about Derrick Henry, and I did mention Byard because of the fact that Byard's a guy who, yes, he made All-Pro and he got the the respect there, but if it's your top 100 list for football for the NFL that they come out with NFL Network, or just in general with making the Pro Bowl, it's just a shame that him, and I thought Logan Ryan had a really good year as well. But
yeah, Kevin is probably my favorite player to watch on that team, just week in and week out. He's just so good, and you can see it. I mean, you said you're a season ticket holder, so you've watched him play in person before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can just tell he's just better than most everyone else that plays that position.
Yeah. And I, with the Bears and stuff, because they're, like I said, I live about an hour and a half from Chicago. They'll claim they have the best safety, but, Deion Sanders in his prime, you don't throw at Deion because he's good. So I think a lot of it stat-wise might have something to do with they respect Byard enough where they're not going to throw it his way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Definitely. Writer's Block wants to know with Zach from Wisconsin. I think is he from Wisconsin? Isn't this the guy who recently just, had the test results come back from the combine that he failed? Do you think he may be in play? Do the Titans need more of a middle type linebacker to fit that role? I think he plays middle linebacker, doesn't he? Maybe I'm wrong.
What's the player's name?
Zach Bond.
It's interesting. I think Zach Bond. I admittedly am not too terribly familiar with him. I just had to look up how to spell his name. I think Will Lomas, who I do my podcast with, may have mocked him to the Titans. I can't remember.
It's come up a few mocks. There are a lot of mocks, though.
Look, the Titans don't, but the reality is the Titans don't need an inside linebacker. I mean, that's one of a couple positions where they're just really totally set. You've got two great starters in Evans and Jayon Brown. The backup, David Long, played well last year. You've got Bullo, Nick DeZubnar, who they signed in free agency to play that special teams role.
Yeah.
I think adding to that position early would be a pointless endeavor.
Yeah. Maybe they think because of Woodyard, he's not coming back. So, maybe that's just... I think you have – that's why you have Dubnar and Long. I think they are the Bates-Woodyard replacements. Yeah. And, again, you pick him as that's not going to make you immediately better right now. Maybe down the line it does.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All right. We are at 47. Can we get to 50 likes? That's the question. Matt Moon weighed in. He said, Vaccaro, we're not getting Adams. But that's okay. It's fun to dream and it's fun to have conversations. That's why we have this YouTube channel, I believe, just to get in here. All right. Our last question, just because this guy shares awesome information with me, so I got to give him a. So looking for a nickel corner. Already have two starters, all right, because it looks like, we're not going to lose. We got Jackson. I'm assuming we're going to pick up the fifth. Would you agree with that, the fifth year for Jackson?
I would be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah. Corey Davis, no, but Jackson, yes.
And let me say this about Adoree Jackson. I think people confuse the punt returning with his defense.
Good point.
Adoree Jackson is a bad punt returner, but he's a really good cornerback, and I thought he played really well for them last year.
Yeah. I know me personally, this is whatever. I played high school football, right? So I remember me personally, it was in the middle of the year. They asked me, they're like, hey, you can catch everything as a wide receiver. That was super slow, by the way. That's why I didn't go anywhere. Slow and not tall, like 5'10 and a half. You're not going to go very many places. but punt, they wanted me to do punts. All right? Practice, fine, whatever. I remember, honestly, that's all I worried about all game was, please don't send me back there. Please don't send me back there. Mm-hmm. So they did. And you know what happens. Kick the ball to me, drop it. You know, I could have told you that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But my point is, you're right. With Adoree Jackson, he was really struggling. And we know that he kept being thrown out there to do it because, I mean, let's be honest, he's being paid. And he can be electric. But, man, like, when he came back from his little injury that he had towards the end of the year, I thought he really stepped up and played quite well. I'm actually really excited about him going into next season. And then Malcolm Butler, I know a lot of people see the $13 million or whatever in the cap, but if you lose Malcolm Butler, now you need a 1, 3, 4. That's a lot to lose, and he played pretty well. Would you agree?
You know, I'm totally with you there. You know, I mentioned I love Adoree Jackson. I think he's a really solid football player. And Butler, too, I think people forget how well he played last half of last season in 2018 and the first half of this past season, 2019, before the injury. And let me just say this to these Titans fans who keep saying, let's cut Malcolm Butler. Let's cut this guy. Do you remember those 2-14 and 3-13 seasons when they had Valentino Blake and Parrish Cox, like you said, and who was the other one? There's another one. Bleedy Ray Wilson.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, he's still in the league, isn't he?
Those guys, he may be.
I think he's on the Falcons still.
But look, guys, you've got 2, and you're probably within a week going to have 3 really talented cornerbacks, which you have to be successful in the NFL. I cannot overstate that. Pass rushers and cornerbacks, right? Yep. You can kind of have crap everywhere else and get by, but if you're not good at those 2 spots, you're not going to be good. You've got 3 really talented ones, and at least for now, you can afford them. Why in the world do you want to get rid of them?
Yeah. I don't know. That's what scares me to death. I'm telling you, Luke. The cornerback position, if that first pick isn't a cornerback, and there's a lot of mocks that are ignoring that fact, maybe there's these guys that are sitting on the free agency wire that are not going to come in and do an okay job, but my goodness, I don't want that. And you brought up a very good point. I remember those days. And I feel like if we're going to, no offense to these guys, they are doing great work at what they do to even have a chance to be on a Titans roster. That's way better than it was 4 or 5 years ago, right? So, but I just can't have Durden be my third corner. I can't. Milton's a great special teamer. I can't have him be my fourth corner. I need some solid. Yeah. I thought Sims, I'll just say this really quick. Shocks me Sims isn't back. I was a little bit more high on Sims throughout the year, and he did not live up to what I thought he was. But, man, I was really banking on him being my fifth corner. And then I thought, wow, we get a third and fourth. Man, we're really going to be solid in that secondary. And now we don't even have him as being an option. It's kind of freaking out.
You know, by the way, LaShawn Sims, one of 2 Titans players that had me blocked on Twitter last season.
Did not know that. That'd be a good one, though.
Yeah. Because, and I'm convinced this is why I tweeted during the Steelers game, he got torched on a deep ball. And it was because the Titans ran cover 3, which don't get me started on that. But I tweeted, I said, cover 3 only works in the NFL if you have stellar cornerbacks. LaShawn Sims is not a stellar cornerback. And I'm pretty sure that's when he blocked me. So
wow, is the other
LaShawn,
one?
I don't think you should be playing cover 3.
Is the other one Deion Lewis?
Yeah.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah. And take your pick as to what I said about Deion Lewis.
Now,
that set him up.
Did you get blocked before the purge happened, where he just went on a tear and just blocked everybody, or were you kind of already blocked?
I realized I was blocked by Deion about midway through last season. It was funny. We were recording a podcast, and we were talking about Deion being terrible, and I'm like, man, there's no way I haven't been blocked by him. And so I looked it up, and I was, and it turns out Austin Stanley, who works with me at A to Z, is my boss. He too was blocked by Deion. And then the purge, I think, came later because now my podcast account is blocked by Deion Lewis. But to go back and answer your question about the defensive backs, someone still out there is Tremaine Brock. And you know what? He came in as a waiver claim late last season and played pretty well for them. So if you go out and you draft someone, you could do a lot worse than a number 4 cornerback, and he's probably not going to cost you very much.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know the people that follow here, we're kind of split on it, right? There's some of us that really love him, some of us don't. I mean, you make a good point. I mean, he wasn't awful, but he's not the old Brock when he first came in the league either. But if he's your 4th or 5th corner, yes, he's better than these guys we have right now that I think. And I hope I don't get blocked by those guys. I got a couple of quick questions before I let you go.
Okay.
First one. Relationship between A to Z Sports and LaJuan is blank.
I'm cool with LaJuan. Buck is cool with LaJuan. I think Austin is cool with LaJuan. It really just comes down to Zach Bingham. That's a question for him. One of my favorite days in the Titans locker room was when the last time Taylor got elected to the Pro Bowl. Zach was there that day. Zach and Austin don't usually come to the locker room because they do their show and they have a whole business to run, and so that's Buck and my job is to man that. But they were in the locker room, and LaJuan did his whole. I'd like to thank A to Z Sports for being here today, and Corey Levin walked up to Zach and handed him the letter that the NFL had sent Taylor LaJuan, inviting him to the Pro Bowl. He was like, Taylor, wanted you to have this. But no, Taylor has always been very kind and helpful to me. He gave me a great quote for the Mariota column that I have pinned to my profile right now. He was very helpful with that. He's very candid after games. I remember one of the last games of the season, he gave up like 3 sacks, and I just walked up to him. I said, "What happened?" Right, and he very honestly said, "Here's what happened. It was all my fault, and let me tell you why." And so, I have no problem with Taylor. And I'm looking. I have a shelf right here. Yeah, here it is. Taylor's a very funny guy. And on the last day of the 2018 season, he walks around and hands all of the reporters one of these. I don't know if you can see it.
Zach didn't get one, did he?
No, he did not give Zach one, but he gave me one. And he gave like all the reporters. And it's so funny. Let me read you this because I think it's worth reading to your viewers.
Nice.
This is the description on the back of the card. It says, while the Chiefs stormed out with 9 consecutive wins to begin 2013, LaJuan and the Titans weren't about to let them start 2014 the same way. LaJuan are helping Tennessee net 405 yards of offense. Taylor LaJuan did everything asked of him in his team's Week 1 win at Kansas City. Taylor LaJuan didn't play in that game.
Wow.
Taylor LaJuan was on the bench while Michael Ruse and Michael Orr started at tackle for the Titans.
Wow.
And that card that he gave us made it out like he was some sort of hero in that game.
Yeah, unbelievable, man. And then last question. And I want to tell you this, bottom of my heart, thank you for putting up with some of the technical issues in the beginning.
No, absolutely.
And thanks for spending over an hour with us. Dude, that's awesome.
Honestly, I've been here in this room, for the last month. What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, what else are we all going to do other than sit here and talk Titans, right?
True. And it's a great week. Like you mentioned, it's almost like Christmas week for us here that celebrate Christmas. This, right before I came on, it may have been like retweeted and stuff throughout the day, but I noticed it. Bussin' for the Boys are looking, they got a job available. Mm-hmm. Any interest in applying for that? And tell the viewers up front, or you can plead the fifth as well.
Zero interest. I am not I respect what Taylor LaJuan and Will Compton do. I have certainly listened to some episodes of their podcast. It's not appointment viewing for me. I've listened to some of them, but I am not I'm not in the Barstool mold. I'll just say that. Gotcha. I don't think I would be a great fit with that organization.
Well, guys, he brought it. That was fun. That was a blast. So definitely go check him out. Check out his podcast that he runs there. And like I said, for him to come on the show, answer questions, didn't even know about the town hall questions. I kind of just threw those at him. So I do apologize for that. But yeah, there's his Twitter. I'll tell you up front, I sent him a message. He got right back to me. He's obviously cares for the fans, and he brings the best he can. in Nashville, and he's got a direct hookup, A to Z Sports, as he mentioned earlier. And we talk a lot about Buck Rising, I know, on this show. We're trying to get Buck, actually, Luke, to get that Twitter where he can get that nice blue check mark. That was kind of like our mission this year. So hopefully we can get that. And like I said, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Take care, man. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll do. All right. Appreciate it.
All right. So we're about done here on Titan Upload Live. We got a few things to talk about Tuesday night. We're bringing Bryan back, but this one's like no other. This one is going to be a complete mock draft from pick 1 to pick 32, and Bryan's going to dive down all 32 picks. So that's why it would be on the NFL Tuesday edition of Tuesday Night Lights. He'll go through the complete thing. He will talk about it. So what's awesome is you see a lot of these mock drafts and you just see, a little paragraph there, but you guys will have a great chance to interact with him on the picks and why he thinks you're not supposed to know this, but he even talked about throwing in some trades. This guy does a lot of work. He's consistently putting stuff out about these guys. And I'll be honest with you, there's some great draft guys out there, but Bryan has been, we've brought him in Talk Titans, and Bryan has been talking about the Colorado quarterback. He's been talking about the Florida International quarterback. He's been talking about these guys on this show. You go back and watch the pre-live shows with Bryan. He's been bringing all this stuff already. So I'm super pumped about that. It's not going to be much me. It's mostly Bryan as he walks through, and he said that we're going to be shocked about the Titans pick that he has at 29. Now, I'm not going to be shocked because you guys remember last time we had Bryan on the show, he said we might take a tight end who was like 6'5", 6'6". I even forget what college he came from. If you guys are in the house, you guys probably remember. But a guy I really never heard of, and he thought, well, maybe he would fit in the offense. But he says we will be shocked. Cannot wait to have Bryan on. So if you missed it today, we got a late start. I did not get a great chance to talk to you as far as with your comments, but I know that you guys were bringing them. So I'll definitely, after the show, go through every single one of them. If you have not hit that subscribe button, make sure you do that. We're trying to do big things. And I can tell you up front, if you haven't been able to, I mentioned earlier in the show as we were talking to Luke, but this week went on the Fantasy Football Counselor, and I was basically a guest to talk about Derrick Henry's fantasy value. And I had a lot of information to share on Derrick Henry, a lot of passionate information. So you definitely want to check that out. Same program that we're going to use. So it's not going to be like two completely different shows. It's the same show. It's just on two different networks. And that's very, very important for us because we definitely love working together. So we have that going on. And then here it is, the weekly Wall of Fame. So you get your questions, comments. The first one, there were like all super chats because there were like 9 super chats that night. This past week, I don't think there were any super chats, so you don't have to leave a super chat. And I wanted to point that out to you. I don't want you to think that my show is all about you being heard through a super chat. Now, do I love super chats? Heck yes, I love super chats. But I'm not asking you. It's the only way we will interact with you is based on money. I know these times are very difficult. People losing jobs with everything going on. So I wanted to give my respect and my shout out to these people. And then I'll go ahead and pick new ones, and then we'll just keep this thing going. But you see Demario, Tony, Joseph, NGB Talks on there. Sin City Titan has been all over the place. I saw him in the room last night, Titan Anderson. Cam's highlights, I'm sure that's up from 85 at this point. The Kobe Montana, the Jake Fromm State Farm, that's just classic. And then Al. I don't know if Al's in the house tonight or was in the house. I missed a ton of you guys early on. But Al, for example, always asking and bringing great questions and comments. So, again, it's just something for you, passionate for you guys. I gave you a lot of shout-outs on the Fantasy Football Counselor. I told him we may not have the most fans compared to the Dallas Cowboys or, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chicago Bears, but our fans are the most passionate because you are here on a YouTube channel just to talk Titans, And a lot of us are starved in that area because we don't get a ton of national media attention. But we do have some big things planned. So I did want to let you know that just in the forefront here. Now, we're about done and out of time. But like I said, we had a really difficult start today. And we got to get on that. There's no excuses here on the network to have this many problems, whether it's a broken light. I remember the first time we were trying to go on, it deleted everything. And then today it was nothing to do with Luke. It was all me. It was how I sent the Skype. So it's still a process in learning. I'm not the best Skype guy. I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you, I love, that's the thing that if you're not subscribed yet or thinking about subscribing, you're not sure. We're all truth here. I mean, we talk Titans, but we give you the honest truth, and we never cut down any of your opinions. We're a community built on the Titans. We love the Titans. We try to do other things. I've tried to do security systems. I've tried to do a little bit of Madden. I've tried to do even some NFL stuff, but predominantly the Titans is where my passion is, and I'm super stoked for this draft. You guys have no idea. So if you're free and you're watching, coverage of the draft, definitely have us just so you can come in and leave a comment. I mean, you don't even have to necessarily be watching the show. We're going to be watching the draft too, but you're going to get real emotion about the NFL draft and who we think is going to get picked. And we might have some people from the Titans community popping in here to give their commentary on picks. And did we get it right? Did we not get it right? Are we excited? Are we not excited? But we want to know about what you guys feel. Are you guys excited? Are you not excited? Because I don't know about you. I am super pumped for the draft, and I just hope you are as well. So this is where we'll leave it tonight. LGRW says, Joe Burrow will slide to us at 29. Man, I don't know. Would you rather have Joe Burrow at 29, or would you rather have Jamal Adams playing with Kevin Byard? I think you guys can sleep on that one and leave me a response and an answer down there. But hey, you guys tighten up, and we will see you on Tuesday night. Honestly, gotta be there Tuesday night. Even if you don't really care about how the draft's gonna work itself out until the actual Titans pick, because I think you're gonna get a lot of insight on these guys, and that's the reason why Bryan's coming on. Because here's the deal, okay? Some of these guys, Luke mentioned it too, they slide. The draft is a bizarre thing. Things just happen. You can't explain them and how they happen. It's just you just don't know. You go back and look at how many different Titans. I mean, think of the second round where we picked Henry. Actually, it was Kevin Dodd. Sorry to bring that up. Kevin Dodd. Then Austin Johnson, Derrick Henry. All three of those guys went in the second round. We got a stud in Derrick Henry. Austin Johnson's no longer on the team, and Kevin Dodd didn't even make it a couple seasons. So the draft, it's almost like TV drama unfolding before your very eyes. But you got to know about some of these guys. So when the Titans draft Joe Smith, and we have no idea who Joe Smith is, it's not very fun. It's like playing Madden and doing just a regular draft with a bunch of made-up dudes. You're like, yeah, whatever. But when you actually invest time and you actually put some time into these guys and you know exactly who they are, then you pick them, or they go the round before, or the pick before you, and you're all like freaking out about it. That's what makes it fun. So put in the effort, come on the show on Tuesday, give up a little bit of your time, and let's see what Bryan's got to say. Round 1 through 3rd, or actually round 1, pick 1 through 32. We'll make it fast. We're not going to spend like 10 minutes on a pick. We'll have his reaction thing done in a half hour. Just give up a half hour of your time, and then you guys can leave comments. Did he get it right? Did he get it wrong? And we'll actually see what happens. So we got the 67 likes. You guys are awesome. And like I said, one more time, we will see you Tuesday. We'll be here on NGB Talk on Thursday. And then Friday, super pumped about it. We got round 2, round 3 on a Friday night, and you'll be on Titan Upload Network, and we're calling around, and we're bringing in guests that night, and we'll just put them spot in. We'll throw them in there on Skype. It's going to work this time. Trust me, it's going to work, and we're going to get instant reactions from a lot of the guys in the Titans community and a lot of the guys in the NFL. We're going to try to make that happen on Friday night. You're not going to want to miss it. So again, for the 4th or 5th time, tighten up. Thank you to Luke from No Nonsense, a Tennessee Titans podcast and A to Z Sports. Shout out to you. No free shout outs, we know. And then thanks to you for giving up your time. So tighten up. See you guys soon.